sat in the dark corner of his cantina staring at his drink. The ice cubes had melted long ago, but he did not care. His metal left arm rested on the table next to his. The screen showed a list of names. Names of friends who died in the war. Names he read every night. The cantina was busy tonight. Traders, mercenaries, and drifters filled the smoky room. Some were human, some were aliens. The space station served everyone but humans and stayed away from each other. 5 years had passed since the war ended. The hate was still fresh. Scrolled through the names on his. Johnson, killed on Titan Station. Died saving civilians on New Geneva. Blown up defending the supply depot. The list went on and on. 312 names from his regiment alone. He touched his metal arm without thinking. The doctors did good work. It moved like a real arm. It looked almost real too, but it reminded him every day of what he lost. Not just the arm, everything. A group of human traders sat at the bar. They talked loudly about cargo runs and credits. Behind them, 3 merchants discussed fuel prices. In the far corner, a lone vegan pilot ate dinner in silence. Everyone minded their own business since it was neutral ground. Liked it here. No one asked questions. No one thanked him for his service. No one looked at him with pity. He was just another customer with credits to spend. The cantina door opened. A blast of cold air from the station corridor made everyone look up. A figure stepped inside, 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales, missing his left eye, burned scars across his face and neck. The room went quiet. Knew that face. Every human soldier knew that face. General, the commander who led the attack on New Geneva, the alien who killed thousands of humans, the enemy who somehow earned the nickname the Merciful Claw from human troops. Stood in the doorway for a moment. His good eye scanned the room. Several humans reached for hidden weapons. The bartender looked nervous. A few aliens hissed softly. The tension was thick as smoke. Felt his heart beat faster. His metal hand made a fist on the table. This was the alien who destroyed his life. The monster who turned New Geneva into a graveyard. Part of him wanted to reach for his sidearm. Part of him wanted to start a fight that would end everything. But he did not move. He just watched. Walked through the cantina. His heavy boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Other customers moved out of his way. Some humans glared at him with pure hate. Some aliens showed respect. The general ignored them all. He looked around the crowded room. Every table was full or nearly full. Groups of friends sat together. Business partners made deals over drinks. Couples shared quiet conversations. There was nowhere for a single customer to sit alone. Except for his table. The human veteran sat by himself in the corner. His table had 4 chairs, but only one was used. It was the perfect spot for someone who wanted privacy, away from the noise, hidden in shadows. Walked toward the corner. Each step made the room more tense. Humans whispered to each other. A few stood up, ready to leave or fight. The bartender reached under the counter, probably for a weapon or alarm button. Watched the alien approach. Every instinct told him to run or attack. This was the enemy, the killer, the one who haunted his dreams. But something else held him still. Curiosity, maybe, or just exhaustion. He was tired of running from the war, tired of letting it control his life. Stopped next to his table. The alien was massive up close. His remaining eye was yellow with a black center. His scales had small scars everywhere. Some looked like bullet wounds. Others were from plasma burns. This was a warrior who had seen many battles. The general looked down at. The human looked up at the alien. Neither spoke for a long moment. The whole cantina waited to see what would happen. Could see intelligence in that yellow eye, not the mindless savagery that human propaganda claimed. This was someone who thought and planned and remembered. Someone who probably read lists of names just like did. The silence stretched on. Other customers held their breath. Some reached for weapons. Others got ready to duck under tables. The bartender's finger hovered over the alarm button. Finally spoke. His voice was deep and rough. His English was careful but clear. "Human warrior," he said, "this establishment is crowded. May I share your table?" The words hit the room like an explosion. Conversation stopped completely. Everyone stared at the corner table. A few customers gasped. Others cursed softly. The tension became almost painful. Felt a dozen emotions at once: rage at seeing his enemy, confusion at the polite request, fear of what might happen next, and something else, something he could not name. He looked at the alien's face again, was not threatening him, not demanding anything, just asking permission, like any tired traveler looking for a place to rest. Glanced at his. The list of names glowed on the screen. All the friends who died because of this alien. All the lives lost in a war that solved nothing. But then he noticed something else. Looked tired, old. The kind of exhaustion that came from carrying too much weight for too long. It was a look knew well. He saw it in the mirror every morning. The cantina waited for his answer. Humans and aliens held their breath. The moment stretched like a wire about to snap. Made his choice. Stared up at General. The alien's request hung in the air like smoke. Share a table with the enemy. Sit across from the one who killed his friends. Have a drink with a monster. The cantina was dead silent. Every eye watched the corner table. Humans looked angry and scared. Aliens seemed confused. The bartender's hand shook as he waited to call security. Felt his metal fingers tap against the table, a nervous habit he picked up after the war. The sound was soft but seemed loud in the quiet room. "Human warrior," said again, "this establishment is crowded. May I share your table?" The words were formal, respectful, nothing like what expected from a general. Where was the arrogance, the demands, the hatred that both sides carried? Looked around the cantina. Every table was indeed full. The place was packed tonight. Traders and smugglers filled every seat. Even the bar had no empty stools. If wanted to sit down, this was his only option. But why here? Why ask a human? There were aliens at other tables who might welcome a war hero, who would honor such a famous general. Instead, he came to the one human sitting alone. A human trader at the bar stood up. His hand moved toward his jacket, could see the outline of a pistol underneath. The man's face was red with anger. "You got some nerve, Scaleface," the trader said. His voice was loud and harsh. "Coming in here like you own the place, after what your kind did to us." Other humans nodded. A few more stood up. The tension in the room grew thick. Violence was coming. Could feel it building like pressure before a storm. Turned slowly toward the trader. The alien's yellow eye fixed on the human. For a moment the old general looked dangerous, like the warrior who conquered planets, but then something changed in his expression. "I meant no disrespect," said quietly. "I seek only a place to rest, nothing more." The trader laughed. It was not a nice sound. "Rest? You want to rest? How about you rest in a coffin like all the humans you killed?" More humans agreed with angry voices. Someone cursed in Spanish. Another spat on the floor. The mood was turning ugly fast. Watched it all. Part of him agreed with the trader. This alien had no right to be here. No right to ask favors from humans. No right to act civilized after the horrors of war. But another part of him noticed something strange. Was not fighting back. He could have threatened the humans, could have reminded them of his power, could have started a battle that would leave half the cantina dead. Instead, he just stood there, waiting, patient. A merchant at another table hissed something in his native language. It sounded like an invitation. He gestured to an empty chair at his table, offering the general a place to sit with his own kind. Looked at the merchant. He nodded politely but did not move. His eye returned too. "Human warrior," he said for the third time, "may I share your table?" The question confused even more. Why insist on sitting with a human? Why not take the safe option with fellow? What was this alien really after? A human woman near the door pulled out a communicator. "I'm calling station security," she announced. "This is about to get messy." The bartender nodded. "Good idea, we don't need trouble here." But held up his hand. His metal fingers caught the light. The gesture was small but clear. "Wait." Everyone looked at him again. The injured veteran in the corner. The man with robot parts. The one whose life was destroyed by the alien standing next to his table. Studied's face again. The scars told stories. The missing eye. The burn marks on his neck. This was not some clean officer who commanded from safety. This was a soldier who fought on the front lines, who bled with his troops. Just like Had. "You know who I am?" asked quietly. Nodded once. "Sergeant 3rd Marine Regiment, New Geneva." The words hit like a punch. This alien knew him, remembered him. Out of thousands of human soldiers, this enemy commander remembered one sergeant's name. Howe asked. "Your unit defended the civilian shelter," replied. "For 16 hours, against impossible odds. My soldiers spoke of your bravery, your sacrifice." Felt something cold in his stomach. His unit had held that position until the end, watching friends die one by one, fighting until their ammunition ran out, until the aliens overran them. "We lost," said. "You fought with honor," replied. "That is not the same as losing." The human trader at the bar made an angry sound. "Honor? You want to talk about honor? Tell that to the families of New Geneva. Tell that to the dead children." His expression grew sad. "I think of them often." "Liar," another human called out. "Aliens don't care about human lives." "You are wrong," said simply. "Some of us care very much, too much perhaps." Felt confused. This was not how enemies were supposed to act. Where was the hate, the pride, the joy of victory? Instead, he saw something that looked almost like grief. The cantina door opened again. 3 station security guards entered. They wore armor and carried stun weapons. Their leader was a tall with 4 arms. "We got reports of trouble," the guard captain announced. "Everyone stay calm." The human trader pointed at, "That thing is threatening us. Get it out of here." They looked confused. "I don't see any threatening behavior, just someone asking to sit down." "He's a war criminal," the trader insisted. "The war is over," the guard replied. "This is neutral territory. Everyone has the right to be here." Made his decision. He was tired of the noise, tired of the fear, tired of letting the war control everything. Maybe it was time to try something different. He used his metal hand to push the empty chair across from him away from the table. The scraping sound was loud in the tense room. Every eye turned to him, waiting to see what the broken soldier would do, waiting to see if the war would finally end or continue forever. Looked up at General. The alien's yellow eye watched him carefully. The whole cantina held its breath. Security guards stood ready. Humans reached for weapons. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Made his choice. "Sit down," he said quietly, "but you're buying the first round." The cantina exploded in shocked voices. Humans cursed and argued. Some aliens hissed in surprise. The trader at the bar turned red with anger. "Are you insane?" the trader shouted. "That thing killed thousands of our people." Ignored him, he kept looking at. "And I want to know something. My boys had a name for you. They called you the Merciful Claw instead of running when they saw your banner. Why?" Scaled features shifted. It might have been surprise or respect. He moved slowly to the empty chair and sat down. The furniture creaked under his weight. Up close, he was even more massive than remembered. "Your warriors," began, his voice careful. "They fought with honor even when defeated." The human trader slammed his glass on the bar. "I've heard enough. Anyone who sits with aliens is a traitor." He stormed toward the door. Several other humans followed him. Their angry voices echoed in the corridor outside. Did not watch them leave. He kept his eyes on the alien across from him. That's not an answer. My friends died on New Geneva. What made you merciful to them? Signaled the bartender. The nervous brought 2 glasses of amber liquid. His 4 hands shook as he set them down. He hurried away without speaking. The alien general picked up his drink but did not taste it. When we took the colony on 442B, your people shielded the civilians with their own bodies. Children, elderly, sick. They used themselves as human shields. Remembered the reports. That colony fell in the first year of the war. Total victory, complete human defeat. So said. My soldiers were confused, continued. In war, civilians flee or surrender. Warriors fight until death or victory. We do not understand the concept of sacrifice for strangers. The alien took a small sip of his drink. His scaled face showed no reaction to the strong alcohol. Your species does things that make no sense, said. A human soldier will die to save an alien child. A human civilian will share food with enemy prisoners. A human medic will treat wounded before wounded humans. Felt uncomfortable. We do what's right. Yes, agreed. But you do it without thinking, without calculating cost and benefit, without considering if the aliens deserve help. You just do it. The cantina had grown quieter. Some customers left with the angry humans. Others stayed to watch this strange conversation. The security guards relaxed but did not leave. My propaganda officers told us humans were weak, said. Soft, ruled by emotions instead of logic. They said you would break easily under pressure. Laughed bitterly. Did we break? No, his yellow eye fixed on his metal arm. You did not break, you bent. You adapted. You kept fighting with broken bodies and broken hearts. This confused us greatly. A group of merchants at another table hissed something in their language. It sounded critical, disapproving. They were probably upset to see their war hero talking peacefully with a human. Heard them but did not respond. He continued speaking too. At New Geneva, I watched your unit defend that shelter. 16 hours, against overwhelming force. You had no chance of victory, no hope of rescue, no logical reason to continue fighting. Felt old pain in his chest. We had orders. Orders seemed genuinely puzzled. Your command structure had collapsed. Your communications were destroyed. Your officers were dead. Who gave these orders? Was quiet for a moment. He remembered that day clearly. The fear, the desperation, the sound of alien weapons getting closer, his friends dying one by one. Nobody, he admitted. We just couldn't abandon the civilians. Nodded slowly. This is what my soldiers could not understand. You fought without orders, without hope, without reward, simply because you believed it was correct. The alien general turned his drink in his hands. The liquid caught the cantina's dim lights. When you finally ran out of ammunition, you threw rocks. When you ran out of rocks, you used broken furniture as weapons. When your weapons broke, you used your fists. Remembered that too. The final moments, being overwhelmed by alien soldiers, waking up in a prison hospital with his arm gone. We lost, said again. You delayed us for 16 hours, replied. 16 hours that allowed 3,000 civilians to escape, 3,000 lives saved by 12 human soldiers. Felt something twist in his stomach. He never knew how many people escaped. Command never told them. He assumed they all died anyway. My officers wanted to execute your survivors, continued. Standard practice. Wounded enemies are useless. Better to end their suffering. The alien's voice grew softer, more careful. I forbade this. My soldiers were disturbed by your unit's sacrifice. They began asking questions. If humans were truly mindless animals, why did they die for strangers? If humans were weak and cowardly, why did they fight impossible battles? Looked around the cantina. A few humans still watched with suspicion. Most aliens seemed confused by the conversation. The bartender cleaned glasses nervously. "You started doubting the war," said. "I started doubting the propaganda," corrected. "The war was necessary, resources were scarce, territory was limited, conflict was inevitable, but the reasons we were given, those began to seem false." The alien took another sip of his drink. His scaled hand was steady despite his massive size. "We were told humans were evil, selfish, destructive, yet everywhere we conquered, we found evidence of the opposite. Human hospitals that treated all species, human schools that educated alien children, human food banks that fed anyone who was hungry." Felt a strange emotion, something between sadness and pride. "That's just how we are." "Yes," agreed. "That is exactly the problem. Your species does good things naturally, without thought, without expecting reward. This is very difficult for other species to understand." The conversation was interrupted by a loud crash. A drunk human at the bar had knocked over his stool. He pointed at with an unsteady finger. "Traitor," the drunk man slurred. "Sitting with the enemy, probably giving away human secrets." Started to respond but spoke first. "This human owes me no loyalty," the alien said clearly. "I am his enemy. His anger toward me is justified. If he chooses to show kindness despite this, it only proves my point about human nature." The drunk man looked confused. He was not smart enough to understand the alien's words. He mumbled something and turned back to his drink. Studied's face. "You're not what I expected." "War makes monsters of us all," replied. "Some of us remember how to be something else when the fighting stops." 2 hours had passed since sat down at its table. The cantina had grown quieter. Many customers left, unwilling to watch a human and drink together. Others stayed out of curiosity. The bartender served them several rounds but kept his distance. Felt the alcohol warming his blood. It made talking easier somehow, made the war feel further away. He studied the alien across from him and realized something strange. They were having a conversation, not an argument, not a fight, just two old soldiers sharing stories. "Tell me about your scars," said, pointing at the burn marks on his neck. The alien's scaled fingers touched the damaged skin. "Human plasma grenade, Battle of Titan Station. Your people fought very hard there." Nodded. "I heard about that fight. We lost a lot of good people." "As did we," replied quietly. "The human commander refused to surrender even when his ship was crippled. He rammed our flagship instead, took 800 lives with him." The alien's voice carried something had not expected, sadness, maybe even respect. "Captain said, he was a good man, had 3 kids back on Earth." "I did not know his name," admitted. "We rarely learned the names of enemy commanders. It made killing easier." Understood that feeling. The military trained soldiers to think of enemies as numbers, targets, objects to be destroyed. Learning names made it personal, made it hurt. "What about this one?" asked, pointing to a deep scar across left arm. "Human medic," said. "She was treating wounded prisoners. Some of my soldiers thought she was a spy. They tried to stop her. I intervened." Raised an eyebrow. "You protected a human medic." "She was saving lives," explained. "Lives. Enemy soldiers she had no duty to help. When my men tried to arrest her, she stood over a wounded warrior and refused to move. Said she would not let him die while she could help." The alien general touched his scar again. "The soldier she protected was my nephew. He lived because of her courage. How could I let her be harmed?" Felt a strange emotion. Pride, maybe. That unnamed medic had done what humans do. The right thing even when it was dangerous, even when it made no sense. "Your people are confusing," continued. "You save enemies. You share food with prisoners. You cry over dead aliens. My soldiers began to question everything they were taught about humans." "Did that cause problems?" asked. Laughed. It was a harsh sound like metal scraping stone. Many problems. My officers complained to high command, said I was becoming too soft, too influenced by human behavior. The alien took a long drink from his glass. They were probably right. After months of fighting humans, my tactics changed. I began trying to minimize casualties instead of maximizing damage. I looked for ways to end battles quickly instead of making examples of defeated enemies. Leaned forward. That's why they called you the Merciful Claw. Your soldiers noticed the change before my own people did, agreed. When I conquered a human position, I allowed surrenders. I protected prisoners. I permitted medical evacuations. Other commanders thought I was weak. But you kept doing it. Yes, Yellow Eye met's gaze, because I learned something important. Victory without honor is meaningless. Conquest without mercy is just destruction. Thought about that. During the war, he hated all equally. They were monsters, killers, aliens who wanted to destroy humanity. But sitting across from this general, he saw something different, someone who had learned and changed. Why are you telling me this? Asked. Was quiet for a moment. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Because I carry guilt, the alien said finally. For orders I followed, for deaths I caused, for a war that should never have happened. Understood that feeling too well. He carried his own guilt, for friends who died under his command, for mistakes that cost lives, for surviving when better soldiers did not. We were just following orders, said. Were we? Challenged. Or did we choose to believe the lies because fighting was easier than thinking? The question hung in the air between them. Had asked himself the same thing many times. Late at night when the memories came back, when he read the lists of dead friends, when he looked at his metal arm and remembered the cost of war. I don't know, admitted. Neither do I, replied. But I know this. The soldiers who served under me began treating human prisoners differently. They shared rations with wounded enemies. They learned basic human words to communicate with captives. They started seeing individuals instead of targets. The alien general leaned back in his chair. Some of my officers called it contamination, said my troops were being infected by human weakness. They requested my removal several times. But you kept your command. I had political protection, and I achieved results. My forces took objectives with minimal losses. We conquered territories without destroying them completely. High command tolerated my methods because they worked. Realized something important. This alien had risked his career to show mercy, had faced criticism from his own people for treating humans with basic decency. That took a different kind of courage. What happened to your eye? Asked, pointing at the empty socket. His expression grew dark. Human sniper, Battle of Europa Station, very skilled shooter, took out 12 officers before we located him. Did you kill him? No, said quietly. When we stormed his position, we found him protecting a group of alien refugees, families caught in the crossfire. He could have escaped while we searched for him. Instead, he stayed to shield non-combatants. The alien touched his damaged face. I ordered my soldiers to accept his surrender. My second-in-command disagreed, said the sniper was too dangerous to take alive. We argued. The sniper used that moment to detonate explosives, killed himself rather than risk the refugees being harmed in a firefight. Felt a chill. That sounded like something a human would do, sacrifice everything to protect innocent lives. The explosion took my eye, continued, but the refugees survived, all of them, because one human soldier chose their lives over his own. The cantina had grown very quiet. Other customers had stopped their own conversations to listen. Even the bartender was paying attention now. That was the moment I truly understood your species, said. You are not weak. You are not emotional. You are something else entirely. Something my people have no word for. What's that? Asked. Good, said simply. Not all humans, perhaps, but enough to matter, enough to change how others see the universe. Felt something break loose in his chest, some tight knot of anger and pain that had lived there for 5 years. This alien understood. This enemy saw what humans really were. "We're not perfect," said. "No," agreed, "but you try to be better even when it costs you everything. That is remarkable." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two old soldiers who had found something unexpected, not friendship exactly, but understanding, recognition of shared burdens and similar scars. Outside the cantina's viewport, ships from a dozen different species docked at the station. Trade vessels and passenger liners, military escorts and private yachts. The galaxy was slowly learning to live together. Maybe there was hope after all. The cantina had nearly emptied as the station's night cycle began. Only a few customers remained scattered at distant tables. The bartender cleaned glasses quietly, occasionally glancing at the unusual pair in the corner, and sat across from each other, surrounded by empty glasses and years of shared understanding. Checked his chronometer. 4 hours had passed since the alien general first asked to share his table. 4 hours of stories and confessions. 4 hours of seeing an enemy become something else entirely. "I should go," said, though he made no move to leave. "My transport departs early tomorrow." "Where to?" asked. "The Outer Rim, cargo escort work. Not glorious, but it pays well enough." The alien's voice carried a note of resignation. "There is little demand for old generals in peacetime." Understood. He faced the same problem. His skills were military. His experience was warfare. The galaxy was trying to build peace, but it had no use for professional soldiers. "Same here," admitted. "Security work mostly, guarding or shipments, watching over trade negotiations, nothing that matters much." They sat quietly for a moment, two warriors made obsolete by the peace they helped create. "I have a confession," said suddenly. "I did not come here by accident. I knew you frequented this establishment." Felt a spike of suspicion. "You've been watching me." "No," said quickly. "But word travels in the veteran community. Humans and may not socialize, but we hear stories about each other. Your name came up in conversations." "What kind of conversations?" Hesitated. "There are others like us, veterans who struggle with what we did during the war, who question the hatred our species still carry. Some have tried to make contact across the divide." Leaned forward. This was news to him. Contact. "Small gestures mostly," explained. "A merchant who gives fair prices to human customers. A human medic who treats alien patients without prejudice. Nothing organized. Nothing official. Just individuals trying to be better than their past." The alien general reached into a pocket in his armor. He pulled out a small object and placed it on the table. It was an honor token, a carved piece of bone that warriors gave to show deep respect. "I came here to give you this," said. "Not as a general to a soldier, but as one veteran to another. You earned it on New Geneva." Stared at the token. It was beautifully carved with symbols he did not recognize, but he understood its meaning. This was worth more than medals or commendations. This was personal recognition from an enemy who had become something like a friend. "I can't accept this," said. "Why not?" Thought about it. Why couldn't he accept respect from a former enemy? What rule said that understanding was impossible across species lines? "Because," started, then stopped. He realized he had no good reason, just old habits, old fears, old hate that no longer felt as real as it once did. He picked up the honor token. It felt warm in his palm, heavier than he expected, like it carried the weight of significance. "Thank you," said quietly. Nodded, then he stood slowly, his massive frame unfolding from the chair. "I should truly leave now, but I am glad we spoke tonight." Stood too. The alcohol made him slightly unsteady, but his mind was clear, clearer than it had been in years. "General," he said as turned to go. "Yes." Pulled something from his own pocket, his service medal, the one he received for New Geneva, the one that felt meaningless because it came with survivor's guilt and phantom pain. "Trade offered." His yellow eye widened in surprise. For a moment, the alien looked genuinely moved. He reached out and took the human medal, examining it carefully. "This is a great honor," said. "So was yours," replied. They stood there for a moment, two old soldiers holding symbols of respect across the species divide. Around them, the cantina continued its quiet business. Other customers talked softly or nursed drinks alone. The universe kept spinning. But something had changed, something small but important. Clipped's medal to his armor next to his own decorations. The human silver looked strange against design, but it fit somehow. Put the alien honor token in his pocket next to where his medal used to rest. It felt different there, like a promise instead of a burden. "Perhaps," said carefully, "we will meet again someday, in better circumstances." "Perhaps," agreed. "The galaxy's getting smaller, bound to run into each other eventually." The alien general smiled. It was the first time he'd seen that expression on a face. It was not quite human, but it was genuine, warm, hope. "Until then," said, "try to remember that the war is over. Peace means we can choose who we become next." Watched the massive alien walk toward the cantina door. Other customers moved aside respectfully. A few nodded politely. The fear and tension from earlier had faded into something like acceptance. At the door, paused and looked back. "Human," he called across the room. "When others ask what we discussed tonight, what will you tell them?" Thought about the question. What had they discussed? War stories and regrets, guilt and understanding, the possibility that enemies could become something else given time and alcohol and honest conversation. "I'll tell them," said loudly enough for the whole cantina to hear, "that the war taught us how to kill each other. Tonight we learned how to live with each other." Several customers looked up from their drinks. A human trader near the bar nodded slowly. An alien couple exchanged meaningful glances. The bartender smiled for the first time all evening. Bowed slightly, a gesture of respect between equals. Then he was gone, disappearing into the station corridors. Sat back down at his table. He pulled out his and looked at the list of names, the friends who died in the war, the comrades who never came home. But for the first time in 5 years, the list did not feel like an accusation. It felt like a memorial, a reminder of people who fought for something they believed in, who sacrificed themselves for causes greater than personal survival. Maybe their deaths had meaning after all. Maybe the peace that followed justified the price they paid. Ordered one last drink and raised it toward the empty space where it sat. "To the dead on both sides," he said quietly, "and to the living who have to figure out how to do better." Around the cantina, other customers heard his words. A few raised their own glasses. Human and alien hands lifted drinks in silent toast, to fallen friends, to former enemies, to the possibility that understanding could bridge any gap given enough time and courage. Outside the viewport, the station's lights twinkled like stars. Ships from across the galaxy docked side by side. Humans and dozens of other species worked together, traded together, lived together in the growing peace. It was not perfect. There was still suspicion and fear, still anger over past hurts, still work to be done. But it was a beginning, and sometimes beginnings were enough. Put the honor token on the table next to his. 2 objects from different worlds, symbols of war and peace, evidence that even the deepest divisions could be crossed by those brave enough to try. He smiled and began planning what to do with the rest of his life. For the first time since the war ended, the future looked interesting again.